In 1991, seismic sensors detected something buried beneath the Great Sphinx's front paws. A rectangular void, 12 meters long, 9 meters wide, 5 meters underground. Its boundaries were too precise to dismiss as a natural fissure. And this wasn't a fringe expedition. The survey was led by Boston University geophysicist Thomas Dobecki. The data was peer-reviewed, published, and never retracted. 34 years later, no government-sanctioned excavation, official investigation, or peer-reviewed follow-up has produced a complete, agreed-upon explanation. What is under the Sphinx? Who put it there? And how long has it been waiting? That is where this story begins. The Great Sphinx wasn't assembled. It was carved directly from the Giza Plateau, one continuous mass of limestone shaped into a lion's body with a human head. It stretches 73.5 meters, longer than a Boeing 737. In places, it rises 20 meters, 6 stories high. And it faces due east, aligned with the equinox sunrise. That alignment has fueled centuries of arguments over one question. What was this monument built to do? For more mysteries grounded in real science, subscribe. Every week, we investigate famous sites where the evidence refuses to fit the familiar story. At the Sphinx, the modern controversy began with a claim almost no scientist wanted to touch. The modern controversy began in 1990 with John Anthony West, a self-described alternative Egyptologist. He showed Boston University geologist Robert Schoch the deep vertical fissures running down the walls of the Sphinx enclosure. West's claim was explosive. Only centuries of heavy rainfall could have carved them. But Egypt was already becoming a desert by the mid-3rd millennium BCE. So if rain caused the erosion, the Sphinx couldn't be just 4,500 years old. Schoch dated its original construction to between 7,000 and 10,000 BCE, thousands of years before any known civilization capable of building it. Then English geologist David Coxhill examined the site independently. He agreed. The fissures, he argued, didn't cut through the rock layers like tectonic fractures. In 1992, Schoch presented the theory to the Geological Society of America. The claim exploded. Suddenly, one of archaeology's most famous monuments became one of its most fiercely disputed. Over the following decades, the theory began to unravel. Schoch's argument relied on a comparison. The Sphinx enclosure showed deep vertical weathering. The nearby 4th dynasty tomb of Debehin showed far less. Therefore, Schoch argued, the Sphinx had to be older. But geologists found a major flaw. The two sites aren't carved from the same kind of limestone. The tomb sits in a lower, harder layer. The Sphinx enclosure cuts through the weaker member, II limestone. Comparing their erosion is like watching sandstone crumble faster than granite and declaring the sandstone older. So what carved those deep channels? Most geologists point to a slower process that began millions of years before the Sphinx existed. Giza's limestone contains water-soluble carbonates and natural tectonic joints. Carbonic acid in ancient groundwater widened those joints into deep fractures. When workers later exposed the rock, flash floods and atmospheric moisture cleared and rounded channels that were already there. Then salt accelerated the damage from within. Groundwater carried salt toward the surface. As the water evaporated, crystals expanded and fractured the weak limestone. That process is still destroying the Sphinx today. The rainfall theory hadn't proven the monument was prehistoric. It had compared two different rocks and mistaken geology for age. The erosion theory collapsed. The mystery didn't. Because what investigators found inside the Sphinx is much harder to explain. If the Sphinx fascinates you, I created the Hidden Giza, a research guide to 15 documented Egyptian sites where peer-reviewed discoveries challenge what most of us learned about the ancient world. Every finding is verified. Most are barely known outside academic circles. The guide goes deeper into the evidence the textbooks leave out. You'll find it below. Now, back to what investigators found inside the Sphinx. Whatever you believe about the erosion debate, this part is documented. Between 1837 and 1981, researchers recorded 4 openings inside the Sphinx itself. First, a vertical shaft in the top of its head. Archaeologist Emile Barres sealed it with a cement hatch in 1926. Second, a 27-foot bore in its lower back, drilled by Howard Vyse and John Shee Purring in 1837. Their drilling rod became stuck. The hole was abandoned and never fully re-examined. Third, a natural fissure cutting through the Sphinx's waist. Except its upper edges appear to have been squared off in antiquity. Then came the rump passage, a shaft at the rear descending 5 meters through bedrock to the local water table. Mark Lehner and Zahi Hawass explored it in 1980 and 1981. Inside, they found glass, tin foil, part of a Russian cinema film reel, and a dated ticket from the Giza archaeological area. Someone had entered that passage in modern times, but no official account has ever established who or why. Beneath the geology debate lies a story the controversy has largely ignored. What the Sphinx meant to the people who built it. Long before seismic scans and theories of lost civilizations, the monument had a name. Horemakhet. Horus on the horizon. Ancient Egyptians didn't see it as an archaeological puzzle. They saw a living divine presence, the guardian of the necropolis and the rising sun made stone. Around 1400 BCE, a young prince named Thutmose IV fell asleep in its shadow while hunting. According to the dream stele, the Sphinx spoke to him. "Clear the sand consuming my body," it promised, "and you will wear the crowns of Upper and Lower Egypt." Thutmose became pharaoh. He cleared the sand. Then he placed a massive granite stele between the Sphinx's paws to record their covenant. For decades, the modern debate has obsessed over rainfall and rock. But to the ancient Egyptians, this was never just a monument. It was a presence. One believed to speak, bargain, and choose kings. On March 16, 2025, a 3-man team made an extraordinary announcement in Bologna, Italy. Retired organic chemist Corrado Malanga, remote sensing expert Filippo Biondi, and alternative historian Armando May claimed satellite radar had revealed an underground city beneath Giza. Not a few hidden chambers. A complex stretching more than 2 kilometers. 8 cylindrical shafts plunging 648 meters beneath Khafu's pyramid. At the bottom, 2 cube-shaped chambers, each 80 meters wide. And beneath, a 33-meter sand mound northeast of Khufu's pyramid. A buried second Sphinx. Within days, the claim went global. Then it hit a wall. Physics. Former Antiquities Minister Zahi Hawass dismissed the findings as baseless, noting that Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities had never granted permits for the study. Geophysicist Lawrence Kinnears identified an even bigger problem. Radar waves cannot penetrate hundreds of meters through solid limestone. He called the team's proposed 38,000-year timeline outlandish. Egyptian streets reached the same conclusion. The claim failed basic laws of electromagnetic attenuation. The underground city was sensational. The evidence wasn't convincing. But Giza is still being scanned. And inside Khufu's pyramid, a sealed door at the end of the scan pyramid's corridor remains unopened. This is why the Sphinx refuses to leave the public imagination. Extraordinary claims travel fast. Corrections don't. The water erosion theory relied on an invalid geological comparison. The Bologna underground city collided with basic physics. Yet the story of a prehistoric sphinx hiding a subterranean world keeps circulating in books, documentaries, and online. That's how sensational archaeology survives. The claim reaches millions. The correction reaches a fraction of them. But removing bad evidence doesn't erase every mystery. Strip away the prehistoric rainfall timeline, the satellite city, and the Hall of Records legend. 3 questions remain. What is the rectangular anomaly beneath the Sphinx's paws, and why has no excavation settled it? Whose face does the monument actually wear? And what lies behind the sealed door inside the neighboring pyramid? None of these proves a lost civilization. None needs to. Because beneath every theory stands Horemakhet. Horus on the horizon. A guardian carved from living rock, still standing, still disputed, still pulling the world back to Giza. More than 4,000 years after a prince dreamed it spoke, the theories keep collapsing. The Sphinx remains,